Hey everyone, welcome to My Kind of Weird. My name's Anthony. Now, today we've got a very special guest on the episode, Mr. Vic Lagina, who is a prolific pornographer. He has written a book called Filthy, which is a salacious tell-all on the porn industry. Vic, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you? All the way down under.
Yeah, doing well, doing well. Now, just to get sort of the weirdness out of the way, it has occurred to me because you've filmed and produced and directed thousands of let's say adult content that I could stare at myself naked every day for the rest of my life, and you still would have seen more dicks than I have.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's correct. Probably. I mean, what's the dick doctor? Is that a proctologist or that's the butt doctor? Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I could be that too, you know. I should be Dr. Legina at this point in time. I
Yeah,
think I've
yeah.
earned it. Yeah.
I'm assuming is that was that intentional because it rhymes with vagina?
Yeah, yeah, you just
Yeah,
switch the letters around and
yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
My feeling was if you're gonna get into porn, you gotta have a good name and it should
Mm,
be reflective of your attitude towards the industry. And I never took it seriously. I took the job seriously. I took
mm.
making sure that the product I delivered was good, having a good work ethic. But as far as like porn goes, I mean, you can't take this shit seriously at all. And you would be amazed at how many people out there do, and they allow their egos get in the way of all this. But I couldn't. So Vic Lagina, it was, and it pretty much set the tone.
Mm. When you and we'll get sort of into the beginnings of your career there, but when you first got when you first I guess became a consumer of porn,
Mm.
was there any specific actors or actresses that had the most ridiculous name that you can think of that stuck out to you?
Um, okay, so when I started becoming a consumer, that would have been in like the early 90s or so.
Mm.
And I don't think anyone really had the cleverness of it, you know?
Yeah,
The
right.
closest it came was one of the writers from Montreal. He called himself Bram Stroker. And
Yeah.
I thought that was good. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, there's been attempts at greatness and they all fail. And matter of fact, I
Yeah,
think this could be ego at play, but people have voted my name as the best name in porn. So I'll take a
right.
little pat
Yeah,
on
a little pat on
on
the
the
back.
shoulder.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. So, what are some interest? I read up on you a little bit, and obviously, I know about your connections with various different studios in the adult industry. But what really got you into porn? Because I'm assuming one would start maybe in film school and then sort of fall into it. How did that start for you?
A lot of wrong turns along the way, but you're right. For me, it started with I was always into movies and TV, growing up as a kid, video games. Like I was a very normal kid that had a pretty normal upbringing outside of Philadelphia. And I went to undergrad at Syracuse undeclared, but they had a really good communication school. So my freshman year, I was able to get into it, and I decided to major in TV and film production. No, I don't know if you know much about Syracuse, but it's very cold and very snowy. And after the
Right.
4 years, I was done. So I went south to Miami. And from there, I started working in the mainstream world. When I use the word mainstream, I'm actually talking about legit TV and film. This was more like commercials and corporate. And while I was down in Miami, I decided to get 2 more years of unnecessary education in communications at the University of Miami. And at the time, I was, producing and editing for this corporate company. But I also eventually, because I got a master's, I was teaching college. So you have to ask, okay, where does it all go wrong? Where does it all go haywire? And the truth is, I met a hot girl when we were doing a video in Jamaica. And we hit it off. And then she says, I'm thinking about moving to LA. Would you want to come? Now, when a hot girl who's really good at sex asks you to come to LA, you're gonna say yes. So I did, and a lot of it too was Miami was comfortable, but I really wanted to get TV and film projects off the ground, and the better place to do it was LA. It wasn't Miami. Well, we get there, and it's your typical LA tale. You get chewed up, spit out. Work is not plentiful, and one day, after maybe about 2 years of being out in LA, I answered an ad on something called adultstaffing.com. And there was a young man who wanted to shoot a porn movie. And I answered the ad and I told him I could do it because he was paying $500 that I sorely needed. And so that was my first day of porn in April of 2002. And we shot my first movie that day. And that was the fateful day where it all started. But before that, I mean, I accumulated a lot of debt. So financial
Mm.
need was really what birthed this whole enterprise.
I mean, adjust for inflation, $500 is a lot of money
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, for
back
for sure. I
in
mean,
what, early 90s,
yeah, no, this was in 2002, April of
2002.
2002.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. My entire career was about 20 years because I pretty much hung it up in April of 2022 when I was officially retired from everything. But back then, yeah, I needed the money. And my girlfriend at the time, yes, she was hot, but she wasn't very ambitious. And around that time, she wanted to become a white female rapper. She wanted to become the feminine. Yeah, yeah. There's loads of bad ideas in all of this, and I thought it was a great idea, so I funded her demo on my credit cards, like a dumbass.
No,
And
no.
yeah, so yeah, this is where it was. It was debt. It was lack of jobs, and that first day I met people, and then I met more people, and then I learned how to chase the leads. And
Yeah.
eventually, things got so tough in LA that I had to pack up my jalopy of a vehicle and make it back to South Florida again to regroup. And, the whole plan was to go back to LA after getting out of debt. But she was doing bong hits on my futon because I couldn't afford a couch. She wasn't working. I was working two jobs. But the porn snowball had started and it started growing and growing and growing to the point where I had a fledgling business on my hands, even more so when she broke up with me and left.
Oh
So,
man, you gotta love
yeah.
the irony there. Hey, what sparked the breakup? Was it the working in porn or
No, I don't think so. I think it was the fact that she was like a gigantic leech. Like I was drowning in
yeah.
debt because like I was supporting both of us. I supported her dreams that weren't coming true. And instead of like contributing to the household, she was just doing bong rips and doing nothing. So I just became such a bastard to live with that eventually she got sick of me. Yeah, you're like, huh, how does that work out? But I'll tell you something. Once
The
she left,
stoner leaves. That's when you
yeah, it
know
was crazy.
someone's being a bastard.
I know exactly. Yeah, I must have been a real motherfucker to be around for her to leave me,
Yeah.
who was supporting her. But the truth is that when she left, the black cloud that had been over our heads, pretty
Mm.
sure it just kept following her. And for me, I just applied myself because I wanted to get out of debt really badly. And with all the new clients I had, I was out of debt in 10 months after she left. Like $26,000 in debt gone.
Who
Whereas with
knew?
her, yeah, yeah. With her, I knocked out maybe 3 grand of that debt.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting when the dynamic changes and what happens when you apply yourself. But the most important thing that happened was I met the guys who would eventually become Brazzers. And they told me if I were to tap into the LA talent pool, they would keep me very busy. And they weren't lying at all.
How did that meeting happen? How does one
Uh,
meet the guys? Is it just pure coincidence or how does that
so
happen?
So there's a website called gofuckyourself.com, and that's where I would chase all of the leads. People would post, I need a content provider. I would underbid everyone. I would provide more services. And most important, I didn't fuck with anyone's money. So in the porn industry, especially at that time, cream rises to the top. And one of the people that I met along the way, do you remember the instant messenger called ICQ?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that,
It never really hit big over here in Australia, but it
yeah.
was here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the truth is that everyone was on it, and there
Yeah.
was a guy that had the name. I thought it was Brazer, but it's actually pronounced Brazer, and they were very big on the big boobs, like tit fucking scene. So this is what would
Mm.
happen. I would find this a couple, a man and a woman, and I have a load of work for them, and we would knock it all out in this seedy hotel room in South Florida. And they would hit me up. They're like, "Oh, you're shooting her. Hey, see if she'll do like a tit fuck scene for like $100." And they were paying like 200. So I looked at the dude. I'm like, "You got another one in you?" He's like, "Absolutely. $100." They're like, "Yeah, let's do it." And it was like such. It was really so quick and dirty,
Yeah.
but that was where it all started. And they liked what I did, and they just we kind of grew from there. They were ready to level up from seedy hotel room tit fucking scenes to actually like more legit productions. And upon my arrival in Vegas was when they were really leveling up, and that was when it really started to take off.
Because I imagine tit fucking scenes back then. I mean, they were around, but they weren't huge. They weren't in every single video. It's sort of a staple, much like a money shot, it's just expected.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the lead guy, his name was Weesum. He was the guy on the other end of the Brazzers name on ICQ. But these guys, these, fraternity nerds from Concordia University in Montreal, they knew how to market porn. And I guess to no one's surprise, tits converted and sold. So that's why it was all about that. And that's why in the infancy stages of browsers, it was all about the big boobs. Everything was about the big boobs because they could sell big boobs.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, trends shifted a lot over the years, sometimes into more disgusting territories like squirting and stepbrother shit. But truth is, that back then was where it all started with big, huge boobs that, were either fucked or played with or jizzed on or whatever. But yeah, they grew it from that little idea into a monstrosity.
I yeah, I guess from there you talk about the disgusting sides. I imagine you've seen a lot of disgusting sides to porn. Um
Yep.
and I mean, I remember something that was really big online at the time, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, were porn bloopers. And it's just, I
Mm.
think they got passed around in chat rooms just a whole lot amongst guys. Um, were you ever, in the room where some just really off sort of porn blooper type situations happened?
You mean was I around things where there was like excessive bodily fluids and excretions?
Yeah,
Yes, I was a lot.
yeah.
Do you know Brie Olson?
Yes.
You
Yeah, yeah,
familiar?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I cleaned up her vomit in that room over there because Johnny Sins was a little too aggressive with the blowjob, and she puked all over my floor. And as I was cleaning it up, I was like, "Wow, this is the first time I'm cleaning up someone's puke." Like that thought occurred to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got acquainted with Bree and her discharges over the years. When she asked me to help her remove a sponge. You have to use a sponge sometimes when
Yeah.
someone is on their period, and the performer, his his member was very large and really shoved it up there, and she asked me in a very sweet voice if I would help her remove it. And I like to be a helping sort of person. So yeah, I mean, what basically you have to do is like take your two fingers, insert, and like try to grab it like this. And yeah, that was
I imagine
That
it's a
was the
little bit like when you drop something behind the couch and you're trying to
yeah.
put your
Or or you know what it was like? It's like you know those games where the claw drops down and you try to
yeah.
grab the toy? Yeah, it was very much like that. So yeah, I remember I was like really searching around and like I look up at her and she's just like giving me the sweetest smile on her face. And I'm like, wow, this is so weird and awkward. But yeah, usually in the future, other people did the honors of removing a sponge because you can't leave it up there and you don't want to go to the ER to remove it. So
Mm,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I have the ET fingers, so I guess it worked, with Marie.
Um, I guess one thing that sort of resonated with me as I was reading up on you is just there's very much like a dark side to the porn industry, and I guess that
Mhm.
resonated with me more so when I started looking at the Pornhub documentary on
Sure.
Netflix, and
Which I
which I
watched,
found
yeah.
a little bit bizarre because it seemed to skirt the line of on one side you had the how it was created and how how there's a sort of like a darkness behind it in terms of what those that run it have managed to achieve in terms of exploiting performers, and then on the other
Mm,
side, you've got the performers that have been really lucky who are huge, so it works really really well for them. So
mhm.
I guess for you, were there any like as you start to work with the Brazzers guys, was there any sort of underlying sort of dark trends that were starting to sort of percolate to the surface that you noticed?
Yeah, yeah. So you have to understand, Pornhub is owned by the company I used to work for. I mean, they were a huge corporation, an umbrella of a lot of different companies, including Pornhub, and a lot of what our marching orders came from were from the searches. And
Mm.
as early as 2009, they at one point, and I remember this because I had just moved into my first studio, and they sent me this document called Shame on Her, which was like essentially consensual rape. And
Well,
I saw it and I was like, nah, I'm not touching this one.
mm,
And a lot of directors, to their credit, also said they weren't going to touch it. So what they wound up doing was starting this website that wound up being defunct in about 2 to 3 years because of all the uproar, which was Porn Star Punishment. And it wasn't rape, but it was like aggressive. And essentially, the theme of it was a porn star did something wrong, like something as stupid as putting like red socks in the whites, and her boyfriend punishes her for it, and they're not supposed to look like they're enjoying it. And that would it never sat right with me, but there was always before the booking happened, hey, do you want to shoot for porn star punishment? And there'd be more discussions like, are you into this sort of sex? Are you okay with it? And you'd be surprised. There was a lot of girls that were like, I love it. I have a rape fantasy. This is one way of doing it. And you're like, all right. And I shot maybe two of those. The rest of them I gave to a director that was working under me. And, because I didn't really want to get that close to it. But yeah, it got shut down after there was a lot of outcry about it a few years later. But yeah, there was some darkness, and I'll tell you, there was a lot of darkness in the industry itself. I talk about in my book, there's like 8 in memoriams of those that I knew personally that died.
mm,
Now, some of them were deaths from, not suicide or drug overdoses, but for the most part, yeah, it was people were medicating and they were in dark places. And I even started my own drug addictions just to numb myself from a lot of it that I really didn't quite understand until I wrote the book and started recapping all of their deaths and reading their obituaries.
yeah.
Because then you're like, oh, that's why I was medicating to numb myself because I was absorbing a lot of these energies on a daily basis.
Mm, mm. Is that what sort of led to sort of your own sort of flirting with cocaine?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we were really busy. We were busy a lot, really up until like really busy until about 2014-ish. And sometimes we would be doing 4 live shows a month. And these are just not regular live shows. I mean, some of them were big orgies with like 10 people in them. Or we would shoot 2 to 3 scenes a day. And I was managing all of this. Maybe the better choice would have been Adderall. But as far as if you're like really grinding and working, cocaine will make you work harder and it
Mm.
will keep you up and all of that. But, that was the reason for it. But when I really took a step back after being out of the industry for quite a long time, the light bulb went off that it was, yeah, this is you were medicating yourself, you were numbing yourself because yeah, this person that you knew on a personal basis, yeah, they tried to kill themselves a few times, and some of them were successful in doing it. And yeah, it was eye-opening in that regard. So
I imagine some of that numbingness that might come from a similar place of bands always being on the road and there being like the waiting around. They're traveling to a live show, they're waiting around for the live show, and then you sort of you get this high, but then there's that as you perform, but then in between it, there's definitely this sort of low that's going on. There is the rock star aesthetic and the rock star vibe going on, but then when it goes away, and it hits the performer twice as hard when they're not constantly working. Is there sort of that what goes on?
yeah, I mean, look, for me, it was the dreaded cocaine train, like where you would be on it for a while and then
Yeah.
your bag is empty and your nose is blown out and you're like, okay, I'm done. And then you're like, okay, and you're fine. And you're getting it out of your system because I'll tell you, cocaine does make you very irritable, especially when your crew is somewhat incompetent at times. I mean, I would fly off
Mhm.
the handle, or especially with agents who are they have one job is really to inform their clients, the people we're shooting, of what is going on, and so much incompetence to the point where I needed to insert a buffer between me and everyone else because everyone drove me up the wall at a certain point. But yeah, you get it out of your system and you start feeling good again. And then, it's like, hey, just one little bag. Get one little bag. Come on. You get the little voice in your ear. And then, you do what you get one little gram, and then that gram turns into an 8 ball. And then you're like, damn it, I'm back on this again. But the truth is once I was done with porn, once it was all over, I didn't need it anymore. Like that was the crazy part. So this really was driven by the job, you know.
Mm.
Um, and I think you're right. There's other fields too, like doctors. The one girlfriend I had back in Florida, she was a doctor, and she was a total cokehead. And there were a lot of cokehead doctors, which you really think about it, you're like, yeah, high pressure, high intense, no sleep. That is the solution, and
Mm.
it's unfortunate, but it's the reality of things.
That's one fear I have is having to go in for a surgery, just any surgery. And then your surgery, the doctor in charge, the surgeon is the one that's had too many lines the night before, and
Right.
they're not back.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. This is gonna be a great surgery. Yeah, we're gonna get you out of here so quick. You're not gonna feel a thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I'd be
yeah,
like, okay, I'm not. Let's
yeah,
let's get someone else.
yeah. But also the not being able to get someone else, that's where the I think the nightmare lies. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it was. I'll tell you this, man. Like for me, when it all ended, it was a blessing because, to be honest with you, I don't know if I'd still be here at this point in time because of. I mean, I was going hard. Even not so much even with the cocaine. Like for me, when the job started getting to be too much, and this was happening frequently, I would have to go to a music festival and just be
Mm.
away from all of it. And I'd be doing a ton of drugs, acid, mushrooms, cocaine, booze, weed, like whole smorgasbord. But the music and the people just kind of brought me back into the light. It was a
Yeah.
constant battle between darkness and light. And I don't know, like this in 2020, which was my last year shooting for Brazzers, I had my entire 2020 lined up with music festivals because I knew every month I would have to go and have like a blowout in order to come back ready to do the job again. Because at that point in time, towards the end, it just became so joyless. They really sucked any fun out of the job, and it was time for me to exit. I stayed in it because the money was so good, but peace of mind is so much more valuable than this bullshit, which was the porn industry.
You mentioned concerts before, and this podcast is called My Kind of Weird, so I'm curious what sort of music Vic Lagina gets into.
Well, a lot of it was is all basic. It all comes back to the Grateful Dead, you know.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, yeah, they were the granddaddies of the jam bands, and then they had so many offshoots of other ones. And yeah, I had a good group of friends. I'll tell you, my friends kept me in the light, and we would always go down to New Orleans during Jazz Fest and just listen and just see all this live music. And once I was hooked and I realized that this was a better outlet for me, I
Yeah.
just continued doing it. So yeah, there's a bunch of names like Widespread Panic, String Cheese Incident. These are the bands that I was like always about. Um, so yeah, anytime and still anytime there's good live music, I'm there. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Do you think there's a link between liking jam bands, which are very much known for there being no structure, to
mm,
working in the porn industry as a director and having to have that structure, that you needed that to sort of get through, I guess, what you were going through at the time?
maybe, but I'll tell you this. The people that are drawn into that type of music really are like the shiny, happy, beautiful people of the world that when you're with them, I mean, no one shakes hands. They all give hugs to each other. There's
Mhm.
so much love in all of it, which is, the complete opposite of the porn industry.
Yeah.
I would come back from things right before AVN and I would see people and I'll be hugging everyone. They're like, "Why are you hugging everyone?" I was like, I don't know, because I was just doing it for like a week on Jam Cruise, like that was really what I did. But yeah, I was definitely looked at as like kind of like the weirdo free spirit dude, that was in the industry, and yeah, it saved me in a lot of ways. I would say.
Do you think it's that aspect of your personality that allowed you to sort of just shrug things off and get on with it?
I would say so, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'd be hard sometimes to shrug things off at work because, shit trickles down. You've got shit from the head
Literally.
office. Yeah, like with their insane concepts. Like I'm now doing things on Instagram and social media where I take a shoot and I talk about like the bullshit that was going on behind the scenes, the
Hmm.
insane concepts that Brazzers was passing down that I had to make sense of. And then you trickle down one layer and you have a crew that finds anything and everything to bitch about. And I'm thinking, you have a job that pays well, and I pay for your meal every day. Can you just shut the fuck up and work? Could you please? And then you go one step lower and you got the performers. Now, there were some very lovely performers and total professionals, but they were few and far between. You just had people who just brought their bullshit. So, multi layers. It was like a big shit sandwich of just crap that I had to take bites out of on a daily basis. And so it wasn't really easy to make it roll off, but I definitely hit my fuck it button at some point, for sure.
Yeah, they're when from an outsider looking in, there seems to be very much like a pecking order with
Mm.
porn, and very much what can you do for me versus what can we do for each other.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the truth is I was working for the biggest company before. I mean, look, they had some shit on them, some dirt on them early on, especially when they started Pornhub, because a lot of people's copywritten material was showing up on the tube sites and they were losing money. So they were becoming the evil empire until they started cutting people in on profit. Then that kind of went off a little bit. But I was working for the biggest company that essentially took over the industry. That's why I call them the porn monopoly. And when I would call or my production manager would call to give them a job, they were like, I'm there. It was big. Whereas I think if it was a smaller company, especially nowadays with everyone in their OnlyFans and they're making money in so many different ways, that they wouldn't perhaps take my calls or my shoots or whatever. But because it was the best of the best of the best, I would be shooting the best of the best of the best a lot of the times.
I'm curious, you mentioned OnlyFans, and there's been a lot of let's call them shocking OnlyFans creators, and I'm
Yeah,
gonna name names because
I know the
like
ones
the
in
ones
Great
on
Britain.
Daily Mail. I
Yes,
think we
of
know who we're
course.
talking about.
Yes,
Um,
yes, we do.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um, what I'm curious, like folks like yourself who have been in it, who have done the craft, and got it down to a credible business. What are your thoughts on some of these individuals out there that are, for they're really just making it a clusterfuck?
So we are in the dumpster fire phase of
Yeah,
OnlyFans now.
yeah.
And listen, the heat is unnecessary, and it probably there will be some repercussions on it. Now they are a company from Great Britain, so I don't know if the laws are different, whether they'll be protected, whether it would be less stringent as it would be, say, in the United States. But it I mean, this is where it is because there's so many creators now, because so many people jumped on OnlyFans during the
Mhm.
pandemic and saw, revenue they didn't see before. Now to stand out, yeah, they have to push and go differently and go harder and more ridiculous. So I don't think it's going to shut it down or bring that kind of heat, but it is going to create more ripples and news and drama that really isn't quite necessary for a lot of the creators out there.
Does it make the job of legitimate porn studios, that much harder when this stuff is going on?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, the pendulum definitely shifted in 2020 when the pandemic hit. And I actually was okay um, from an objective standpoint. It didn't really bode well for me personally because I was working for Brazzers,
Mhm.
but from a creator standpoint, where you have these girls, guys are literally putting their health and life and their mental health on the line, and they're doing it for a one-time fee from the company that is going to reap the profits, forever in theory. So now you had it where someone who spent time in the porn trenches, they built up a name, they built up a brand, and now they're making all the money, and that's cool with me. I actually appreciated it. Um, so yeah, now it's gotten really lean for the studios, and honestly, I think the reckoning was needed for sure. So I don't feel bad for them. Let's just put it that way.
I don't really know if a reckoning has happened yet. Or did you mean a reckoning for the studios or?
Well, the reckoning for what is now called ALO, which was MindGeek, which was
Oh,
Manwin, which was Manseth, which was the company I worked for.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they are facing a reckoning now that, in my opinion, is well deserved because the things that were revealed after I left really made me feel good about leaving and being done with them. Didn't make me feel good about the victims. And if you're not aware, I don't know how much you're aware of what went down with Pornhub. You said you watched that documentary.
Yeah, I watched the documentary, so I'm familiar with MindGeek
Right.
being behind Pornhub and
Right.
that
And
side.
the thing that's interesting about that is they literally sold a day after that documentary dropped. Now, the thing that's been interesting is because there's so many class action lawsuits against them on behalf of the victims that their abuse was monetized on Pornhub. A lot has been coming out in discovery. And they were this company, this band of Canadians called Ethical Capital Partners, right? Great name, Ethical Capital Partners. They're the ones who bought Pornhub, Brazzers, MindGeek, rebranded into ALO.
Mhm.
But what's found out in discovery is that the previous owners are still very much attached to the company ALO. That sounds a little unethical, I would say. So yeah, it's really interesting to see how all of this is going to go down. Um, there's just they have a lot of lawsuits, and the latest I had heard is that they have cut production slates down, they have let directors go, they are reducing the salaries of their contract stars, which is not going to fly unless these contract stars are really about it for the, I guess, the prestige of being a contract star. And the funniest part is they're blaming it on the tariffs. Like, what the fuck? Like, no, how about it's like the literally multi-million dollar lawsuits that you are facing that you're likely gonna lose. So my feeling is that this porn monopoly that I was part of, that eventually I left, it really does need to be broken up because they do have a lot of power in the industry. And in this country, monopolies are not allowed. Canada, the more I hear about their government, it makes sense why they're based up there. But I would really love to see the monopoly get busted up. It would. It's overdue and it's needed for the industry.
Yeah, we have anti-monopolization laws here, but the reality is those companies lobby to the government, so the government
Right.
looks the other way. So yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. It sounds like Canada is somewhat similar,
yeah.
based on what I've been told by people. So
Well, welcome to the Commonwealth. Um,
yeah. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah. Um, Okay, so I was quite pleasantly surprised, and it gives me faith in humans in general when you and I did like sort of like an email interview a couple of months back, and then you shared some good stories about Phoenix Marie, and Phoenix Marie is obviously a performer that I used to watch, and everything I've seen of her, like I'm not a big believer of stories, but more sort of actions that humans take and the way they portray themselves and their conduct, and hers has always seemed to have been nothing but friendly.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think to be honest with you, look, I left the company on bad terms, and because they have such power, a lot of people that I was in contact with were friendly or even intimate with sexually that spent time in this house would not return a text from me
Oh, so you got
because
blacklisted.
well, I suppose, but at that point, I didn't give a shit anymore because I was done. Like, I literally nuked the bridge to porn, so I really didn't care
Yeah.
anymore. But Phoenix and a few others stayed in contact with me because they're out to, or they didn't care. Phoenix was big enough. Now, the thing
Mm.
that's interesting about her was she's suing the company now,
Oh,
and
wow.
now she's a contract star for their competition for the
Mm.
Vixen Group. And the Vixen Group, I would say, they seem to be the best right now.
Mm.
Brazzers sucks. Let's be very clear. Let me say that again. Brazzers sucks now. If there's people out there that are listening and they want to put their hard-earned money towards a company, do the Vixen Group because they have the best talent in the business now, and they're doing it better than Brazzers is right now. So, yeah, she is suing them. There was a Daily Mail article about her side of the story of what happened, and I mean, this should tell you something. She was on a set with Danny D. He's a British guy. He's a
Mm.
director for, or was a director, and this is the truth. You could have two consummate professionals on set and something like this could derail, which means the outcome is not certain, which is why I was like totally fine being done with it because the slope was becoming very slippery when it came to shooting, where you think you're doing everything right. You're being compliant, you're being respectful, you're respecting people's boundaries, and you don't know if something's going to go wrong or if your read on the circumstance or the day aligns with the actual performers, especially the ones from the younger generations. So when a lot of this was happening towards the twilight of my career, that's when I was like, dude, you made enough money. Maybe it's time to just wrap it up because truth is, I hated it. I just didn't see it until other people saw
Mm.
it. Other people saw it after the fact. They saw me happy. They're like, "Yeah, dude, you hated your job." I was like, huh, I didn't realize it, but it was truthfully I did. And so yeah, I think now every producer and director who's working in company porn is literally holding a time bomb in their hands. Whether or not it goes off, we don't know, but it's gotten to be too slippery of a slope to really want to keep doing it. It was for me anyways.
So more directly, and for the benefit of my listeners, when you're talking about the slippery slopes and what can go wrong, what
Mhm.
can go wrong?
Well, I talk about a couple of instances in my book. One is with August Ames, who
Mm.
took her own
Oh
life. Now
yeah, yeah.
she had dealt with depression and she tried to kill herself once, literally 7 months before she actually did it. But there was a shoot I did with her and Marcus Dupree that was never released. I could watch that again and again and again and not see anything wrong, not hear anything wrong, not hear any cut, stop, no, anything. But she literally went through the entire shoot. And later on, she had said that she did it. She didn't call cut because she wanted to power through. Now, how am I supposed to know that?
Mm.
I shot August dozens of times and she had no problem calling cut. That particular day she didn't. And apparently it really affected her mentally. She did shoot again, despite reports otherwise that that was her last shoot. But that was one thing that happened in 2017. And then there was another incident that came out in 2020 where again, I watched the scene again and again and again. And this performer did an anonymous post, which I put in my book. I mean, I'm very transparent in my entire book, but I watched it again, keeping in mind of her recap of it all. And she says that, I never called cut because I wanted to power through. But that's not true. Like she did call cut. And I say she called cut. And we did stop. But you go through an entire day and her sign outs. We had a protocol. How did your shoot go? Were you treated okay? Were you asked to do anything you didn't want to do? And you have these standard answers. Yes, everything was great. Sometimes with a smile on their face. And then you get a recap a couple of years later, contradicting the entire thing.
Uh,
So you wonder, like, what can I do better? And I think they were implementing a few other things going on sets now, like kind of synonymous to the intimacy coordinators they have on Hollywood sets, where it's kind of
right,
like a
yeah.
wellness check and all that. But I don't know, man. I mean, look, I think what they're doing is treating adults in the adult industry as kids, as
Mm.
with kid gloves. And I just like, look, you can explain away why they are not calling cut as many times as you want. But I'm saying for someone to shoot, they need to know their rights. They need to know what's expected of them without question. Otherwise, you shouldn't shoot them. They shouldn't be shooting in porn, period.
Mm.
And who's right on that argument? I don't know, but I'm sticking to my guns on that one.
Yeah, it's interesting that now that you're giving all that context in that scenario, because I remember the internet summed it up by apparently she said that she didn't want to work with trans performers, and then the internet basically chased her offline, and then the narrative was that she was bullied to the extent, and that's why she claimed her own life. So it's
Yeah. There was she didn't want to work with a crossover performer, a guy who had done gay
oh
porn.
right,
And I'll tell you
yeah,
something. For the longest time, up until I'd say right before pre-pandemic, there was a very definitive line. Like if you were on the gay side, you stay on the gay side. And if you were on the straight side and you didn't want to work with a crossover performer, that was your right. But there started to be like a narrative starting around that time where that's fucked up, you're transphobic, you're homophobic, and it's like, no, I just want to have sex with who I want to have sex with, who I'm comfortable having sex with. And
yeah,
so, yeah, there was a bullying aspect to it, but I think really at the end of the day, and I knew her personally, I knew her intimately. She literally was suffering from being bipolar, had depression, literally tried to kill herself 7 months before. So to say that there was one thing or another, I think that's bullshit. I think depression won in this instance. Her
yeah.
home life was not good with her husband at the time. She felt very lonely and isolated. I mean, I have texts in my phone that prove all of this.
Mm.
So, you have to kind of look at it like, could those be in a trigger? Sure. But I think really at the end of the day, it was really depression won in that case.
Yeah, I think it's anyone who has depression or knows someone who has had depression or has it, knows that it's never just one thing. And that's what I find quite annoying about the internet and quite rightly pisses me off when people try to sum something up to just one
Sure.
reason of why someone acted a certain way. There's people are
Yeah.
not that simple.
Right. Yeah. People have a narrative, especially those who have covered this story, that they
Mm.
need to have things fit into their narrative. But I'm going to tell you something. I knew her. I was in the same room during these shoots. I will tell you, uh, I'm more well versed to talk about it than anyone because I was close to the situation. So yeah, the internet does suck in that way, and people think they are know-it-alls, but you really had to be there before you actually open your mouth. And I did. I put my record straight on exactly what happened in my book because I felt it was necessary for those who really wanted to know something about it.
There's also this idea of moving the goalposts in this culture wars argument that continually goes on. It gets flared up in Australia with the reality show Married at First Sight whenever it re-airs. I know that Americans go nuts for our version of it for some reason, uh, which amuses me because Americans seem to think that we're the nicest people. But the thing is, if you meet an Australian, we're as abrasive as it gets when we're pissed off. But I think,
Yep.
but going back to the cultural argument, kind of what you were mentioning about whether, it's your choice of who you work with, something that always gets brought up is a someone who's on that show doesn't like someone because their looks are not what they look for in a partner. It
Mm,
is your choice. And you are not homophobic, you are not transphobic, you are not, fat phobic or whatever it is, just
right.
because you like someone, you like what you like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, bodily autonomy, very important, something I
Mm,
totally respect, I mean, listen, the earlier days of internet porn, definitely a little archaic in terms, and especially with some agents. Like, agent would say, "You're working with this person," and the performer really didn't have a choice in the matter. That's how it used to be.
right,
And
yeah.
then eventually there would be no lists created. And, sometimes those got annoying because you're like, I always called porn 13th grade, and there was a lot of pettiness. Like, I don't want to work with him because he had sex with my friend's, girlfriend. And you're like, okay, so eventually it's like, how about we just yes list, just send me the yes list.
Yeah,
But yeah, over time you started getting used to the fact, like, hey, let's just make sure everyone's cool, because you know what, if everyone's cool and comfortable, guess what, you get a better product as a result, and you got people wanting to come back. And I was always about that.
yeah.
It was always about, let's maintain a professional atmosphere because that keeps the gig going, and it spreads good word of mouth. Like, yeah, Vic's a good guy. He looks out for you. He makes sure that you're taken care of. Like, that was invaluable to me, and that's what really led to a lot of longevity in my career.
I saw that you were a guest on Lisa Ann's podcast once upon a time, and
Yep,
uh, I guess one area of that is she has been a sort of a very powerful voice for the after porn.
sure.
So do you get any sort of blowback? Probably the worst pun.
Right, right, right,
But do
right, right.
you do you get any sort of like I guess detrimental effects to when someone finds out what you've done previously? Because I know there has been stories of performers that have left the industry that, they're like, I'm doing the right thing, getting a job, I'm being mainstream. But I'm curious, what is it like for someone who's been in your shoes and a director, the life after porn?
Look, there was a lot of, reconciling things over the previous 20 years. A lot of that helped. It was cathartic writing the book and processing it and no longer being Vic Lagina, Brazzers director. But the truth is that I stopped giving a shit and started letting things roll off. I would tell you probably around 2010, 2011. Whereas before, like if I people would ask me what I did, I would, kind of revert back to when I was a corporate video producer. But the problem was, that's the first question, especially in America. What do you do for a living? And, then you got to say, oh, I work in corporate. Oh, yeah. What do you shoot? Now you got to like start spinning
Question
some
two.
tales about, right. And then it just gets worse and worse. And then the point it's like, well, okay, let's go the other direction. I work in porn. And then, you know right away what you're dealing with, either disgust or curiosity. And
Mm.
if it's disgust, great. I don't have to talk to you. If it's curiosity, okay, I can like usually it's like I have so many questions. Now I could just, give them a sticker with a QR code that leads to this,
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
of their questions are answered. I think that was also kind of part of the reason why I decided to push through and write the book and or release the book. I was writing it for a while more as a journal, but to actually make the leap from journal into a tangible product and a well-written book that is getting a lot of kudos and good reviews and a lot of good feedback. Um, yeah, it was really just because there are so many people out there that are curious about it. And I literally had a front row seat to the company that changed the industry forever, not for the best, but it's a legit story. And, with like close to 3,800 scenes under my belt, I've seen a lot. So a lot of people, I guess, performers, they've written books, right?
Mm.
But no one to date, except for me, that was in my shoes, that was in the role of a producer director, had they done a project as far as I have, like to the extent that I have. So it was important for me to do it, and it was important for me to do it in a way that was brutally honest, raw, especially when it came to me and my perspective. Like I'm literally an open book, and I don't have any shame about it because I think people value honesty.
Mm.
They respect it. Whereas if you write a book that's like glossing over your shortcomings, it reads like a pile of horse shit. I want it to be real. I want it to
Yeah.
be genuine.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that really resonates. And in your book, I imagine you, and I haven't read it yet, but I will. I imagine you go a lot into like things like mindset and perspective and things like that of having worked in that industry. But I'm curious throughout your time in it, did it sort of change the way that you sort of looked at women, and did you find that you had to reckon with that when you left the industry?
Um, it didn't really change the way I looked at it. A lot of people ask, did it change your sex life? Did I have to really push things in order to get turned on? And
Yeah.
the answer is no. It's still, pretty vanilla, all things considered. Um, when I was trying to date when I was in the industry, the civilians, as we call them, that was a little difficult because, they were very curious about my job and they kind of viewed me as a novelty. But when it really came down to it, they couldn't be in a relationship because I was around naked women all the time, even though I wasn't having sex with them. So then I started getting into relationships and making compromises and getting into relationships with the wrong women. That's the motif in my personal life up until a certain point. I'm good now, but when I was in relationships, I was dating a lot of broken women. I would say that I felt like I had to make concessions to because of the line of work I was in. Eventually, I got rid of all that bullshit, and I was just trying to just meet regular women. And it wasn't always easy because there was an intimidation factor.
Mm.
There was times where I was just literally hanging out with girls on my personal time in the porn industry. And that also has pros and cons to it. On the physical side, lots of pros. I mean, these are professional sex workers that know exactly what they're doing. Um,
Well, yeah, I guess it'd
but
be like for any guy hanging out at, say, a bar with a bunch of hot women that are
yep,
just hot women, but then you add that extra layer. It's yeah, it'd
yeah.
be hard to
I
meet anyone.
Right, right. And there was times too where it's like, do I really want to be in a monogamous relationship when I go into work? And I was always cool. It wasn't about hooking up, but it wasn't about anything personal, which is interesting because like when you handle things from a professional standpoint and you're all business and you're not hitting on women, they're like, why is this guy not hitting on me? And then they're like, hey, can we hang out sometime? I'm like, sure. That's how it always happened. It was bizarre like that. But yeah, I couldn't be monogamous when those circumstances are happening.
Mhm.
So I stayed single for a while. And anytime I would go on a date with a civilian, a lot of times before I even walked out the door, I'm like, this is going to be a gigantic waste of time. And it usually was because they're like, I don't know if I can hang out with you because I just feel intimidated. How can I measure up to these professional sex workers? And I'm like, it's a valid point. It's a valid point. So once porn was over, though, it changed a little bit where I was able to meet women and I was distanced from it and they were intrigued because I wasn't around it all the time.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, my book details what it's like to try to be in relationships. And I mean, that is a good part of the journey. So I really couldn't leave that out, but the rest of the book is side topics. Like admittedly, my trajectory was very much a shit show, no doubt about it. And while shit shows are very intriguing to people, I didn't know if it was enough to sustain a reader. So in my book, whenever I talk about myself, then I divert. And I talk about, there's 9 lessons of Vic Lagina's School of Porn, where you talk about everything from what to do when she's on her period. Is it squirt or pee? Hygiene, prepping for anal, right? These are side topics. Then we go back to the my path. And that's really what the whole book is. It's like a mixture of my journey plus about the entire porn industry as a whole.
Yeah. Not sure if that's a recommendation list or a recipe list or
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
no, no, this is great. The book sounds really incredible, like an incredible read. Definitely going to check that out. Are there any areas of the book that you feel like we haven't touched on today?
No, no. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of side topics in there. I just mentioned them. I will say this: I did read the audiobook myself. That was a very, very fun process because, once the lawyers were done with it, and I spent a small fortune having lawyers do a full comprehensive because if
Mhm.
anyone wanted to sue me, I wanted to take the wind out of their sails and write it in a way where there wouldn't be much of a lawsuit. So once they were done and text was locked, that was when the fun part of doing the audiobook. And that was a 40-day process where 37 of
Jesus.
those days, yeah, 37 of those days completely sober, no booze, no weed, nothing. Because I wanted to be real and raw and unaffected and a very straight read. But you see, my alter ego, that was the voice that was created in my brain to kind of navigate me throughout the industry because I had made some poor decisions and I
Mm.
wanted to be, to not do more dumb shit or make more poor choices. There's my alter ego, and that one was when I broke sobriety, and so there was 3 nights of me reading his lines, one of which was like the weed and wine read, and then there was one that needed to be a little more manic. So that was the cocaine read. And then when I was done, I was like, am I done or should I do an acid read? Well, obviously I should do an acid read. So I did do an acid read and I was in my walk-in closet for 2.5 hours and there was like 7 or 8 different personalities that were birthed in that recording session. But that's what makes the project more fun because I had never listened to an audiobook before in my life, so I wanted mine to be a unique experience.
Mm.
And that's exactly what I did. So what I tell people is if you don't have time to read, and the book is well put together, I spared no expense. I want it to be a good product that you can hold in your hands. But if you don't have time, if you drive a lot, if you travel a lot, spin the audiobook on Spotify and it'll be a fun journey. Like people read it and they're like, dude, that was the greatest thing I've ever listened to. And I've watched the stream. Some people have streamed it like 4 times. Like we're at that point right now.
Yeah,
So
nice, nice.
So I would tell people go to viclagina.com. That's how you find everything. The trailer for the book is on viclagina.com. That was something I shot before I vacated my second studio before complete retirement. James Duval, who has been in like Independence Day and Gone in 60 Seconds, he played Vic Lagina. I played my alter ego. It pretty much sums up what the book is. So I would tell people go to that and yeah, if you support the endeavor and you enjoy it, I'd love to hear from you. It was a lot of fun putting it together.
And just that explanation is making the front cover make all the much more sense with the two with the alter ego there. So
There you go.
I guess it's just up to people to listen to your audio book and figure out for themselves which one is the alter ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's driving the vehicle now?
Yeah.
That's the question.
I am
Yeah,
asking myself that right now as I interview, but anyway.
exactly.
Well,
Fair, very fair.
well, Vic, it's been an incredible chat. Wish you all the success with your book, and for my listeners, go check out Filthy, which is on I guess all platforms at this stage and in all good bookstores.
No, it's not on bookstores. It's more just on Amazon. Just
Okay, all right,
if you want
yeah,
the
it's
print
probably
or Kindle,
safer.
go. Yeah, yeah, print
Yeah,
or Kindle, go on Amazon, Spotify for the audiobook. Go to viclagina.com. It'll show you everything you need to get the product.
great, Vic. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me.